Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Dad Edge podcast. I'm Larry Hagner, your host and founder of this show, podcast, and movement. Got a quote for you today, and it's from my guest. And the quote is this: when we as parents realize that our reaction to our children has more to do with our emotional state than the behavior of our child, we realize that the most important thing that we can do as parents is to make sure that we take care of ourselves, putting our oxygen mask on first. And isn't that true? I actually, when I do these interviews on Fierce Friday, when I'm interviewing a member of our community, I ask them to send me a quote that is meaningful to you, something that helps you navigate fatherhood, something that helps you navigate life and even marriage and all these different things. And that's what my guest today emailed me. And when I saw that, it was such a strong reminder of many of us especially when we're new parents, we skip that step. We skip the step of putting our own mask on first so we can selflessly serve in a more profound way. And what happens is we constantly are diving on the sword over and over and over again, the self-sacrifice, which is true to some degree. We have to have that. But at the same time, over time, that will wear us down if we're not putting that oxygen mask on first. So who is my guest today? My guest today is Yeadon Smith. He's been a husband for 16 years. He is the father of 4 redheaded children. He'll explain that one. He's also a marathon runner and a business owner. He is a recovering youth minister, his words, now working full-time in real estate. He's also the co-founder of Live Oak Capital, a real estate investment firm. Yeadon has helped grow Live Oak Capital to over $36 million in assets under management since the beginning of 2019, so 3 short years. He's been in the business of building relationships since he started working as a youth minister in college. The relationship building skills grew as he changed careers from ministry to health coaching to real estate to commercial real estate to investing online, education, and mentoring. Currently, he focuses on mentoring students in their online education platform he co-founded, My First Million in Multifamily. I feel like I'm using the word million a lot, like Dr. Evil, but it's cool. He mentors students and basically the way to go about buying apartment complexes with their private capital investment group. And in 2021, his students closed deals totaling over $10 million. And in his spare time, and there's not much of that because he's got 4 kids as well as I do, he enjoys pina coladas and getting caught in the rain, which I'm not surprised because the man that you're about ready to listen to for the next 45 minutes has an incredible sense of humor. One of those guys that when you get around him, you just can't help but love him because he makes you smile. But he does love to read. He loves to travel and he loves to go on family adventures. So what are we going to be talking about today? 3 insights that Yeadon is going to be sharing today is relationship capital is significantly more valuable than monetary capital. And he's going to explain that one. The most valuable investment, it's not our portfolios. It's not our 401ks. It's actually in ourselves. I'll never forget when I was listening to Dave Ramsey, back in 2004 on the radio. And he always talked about how he had this percentage. And forgive me, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I thought Dave always said 10% of your gross revenue should go to church. Another 10% should go investing in you, some way, shape, or form, whether it's coaching, going to conferences, but constantly learning. And then the third thing we're going to be talking about today is progress is always better than perfection. And isn't that true? So Yeadon, man, welcome to Dad Edge, dude. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you so much, Larry. I'm super excited to be here with you today.
Well, I'm super excited to have you. So, the first question that I have for you, because I just sort of smiled, because I've known you now since May. We met May of 2021.
That's right. It's been a while now. It seems like very short, but not so short after all.
Yeah, it has been a while, and we met actually at a conference that I spoke at down in Destin, Florida, which was awesome. And then you've joined what we call Accelerator Mastermind, which is our business accelerator mastermind for dads who are business owners, who we help you guys obviously elevate your businesses, your relationship with your wife, and then the connection with your kids, go out and lead yourself, dominate your day, your business, and your relationships. So I've gotten to know you really, really well over the past about 8 months now, and it's been amazing getting to know you. But I'm curious. I knew you were a former minister, but I didn't know you were recovering. So what is the definition of recovering?
Recovering youth minister. It's like when someone says, think of I don't want to downplay any recovery programs, right? It's like, my name is Yeadon. I'm a recovering youth minister. It's like you never really get away from the hits you take when you're in youth. If you're in youth ministry, you're the AV guy, you're the video guy, you're the photography guy. You have to deal with teenagers. You have to deal with pre-teenagers. You have to deal with the people who sign your checks, that are 1 to 2 generations older than you. So you get a lot of lumps in youth ministry, and you have to have a pretty broad skill set. So I'm still recovering 10 years later from my decade of youth ministry.
So if I understand you correctly, because that makes a lot of sense now, it wasn't necessarily the ministry that is allowing you to recover. Maybe it was all the things that went along with it, like the logistics, maybe some of the politics, maybe some of the people, some of the challenges.
Exactly
that you didn't
right.
expect.
I loved working with kids. I loved working with teenagers. I loved working with people, right? The relationships is what really resonate with me. And I got to really build significant relationships with my youth ministry career. But yeah, the politics and the logistics and just the physical stuff. Youth ministry is a young person's game. Also, having kids is a young person's game. Like, if you wait till you're 40 to have kids, there's like nothing wrong with that, but just it's way more work than you realize.
I have my last one.
Huge energy reserves for children. Huge.
You're not lying, man. I had my last one at 41. That's when we actually had him. I was like, wow, man. Like, I can just see it.
I have to do all this again?
Right. I was more like, I'm going to be that guy, when my newborn is like 10, you're right. And they're going to be like, is that dad or is that grandpa? you go ask him. I don't want to. But yeah,
is that your granddad standing over there? Oh,
and by I meant grand, I meant like really great guy, not as in grand, like grandpa.
not like grandpa.
Right, not like that at all. So okay, that makes a lot of sense. And so, what are the age ranges of your kids?
So our oldest, William, is 14. So we have a teenager in the house, and let me tell you, the emotional energy required for teenagers. I wasn't prepared for it. I was not prepared for it.
Yeah, how so?
Then
give us an example before you move on to the other kids.
It's like monosyllabic talk. I was going to say conversation, but it's like that's way more than one syllable in that word. Like, hey, I've learned that, for a teenager, the answer, hey man, how was that? I don't know. That means it was awesome. Right. That means they loved it. And they just don't want to admit it out loud to you because you're their dad. I'm their dad. I'm not cool anymore.
Right.
If he doesn't like it, he'll let me know. If he loves it, he'll be like, I guess. So it's he's a thrash metal drummer.
Really?
Yeah. So he hits the cymbals so hard. He goes through a pair of drumsticks a month. He's already destroyed one cymbal, which he's keeping because now it's his trash cymbal. Like I'm like, dude,
your house.
I've had the same drumsticks for 3 years,
right? And
I've never destroyed anything. It's not that difficult to play, not at 180 decibels. He practices with earmuffs on.
Oh my God, your house, dude.
Fortunately, it's in the garage that's detached. But a funny story about that: we were at a bluegrass festival this past year here locally, like a music festival at one of the state parks, and somehow connected with a guy because this is how I do. When I'm out in public, I talk to people and like, oh, hey, how you doing? Somehow realized we're in the same neighborhood. He was like, are you the house? Are you the drummer? Oh. And I was like, no, sir.
Maybe.
That's my son. He's like, I'm so sorry. It's loud. I know. He's like, no, I love it. And this guy had to be, late 50s, maybe early 60s, just if I had to guess. So I was expecting to get totally chewed out. by this neighbor who lives 3 doors away and hears my 14-year-old son drumming. And he was like, no, man, I love it. Like he needs to keep. I'm like, William, come over here. William, you need to meet this. William was so excited to meet somebody with that, who gave him that positive feedback. So he's a very loud drummer, but he's also a very good drummer. William is 14. Phineas is 11. He's named after my grandfather. He's Phineas the third. We skipped a couple generations to tack on that 3. And I love Phineas because his life motto can be summed up by rage against the machine, killing in the name of.
Oh my God.
Now, I can't actually say it on the podcast, but the very end of the song, let's see, forget you, I won't do what you tell me, to put it in the very G-rated version.
Right.
It just says it like that is his theme song for life. Like if he feels like it's unfair or the person in authority is out of line, it's like he will die before he complies, which as a parent is very stressful sometimes. And I'm waiting for the day when he will save the world because he will not bend. Hadn't happened yet, but it's coming. Oliver is 9 and he is a dancing machine.
Okay.
He loves music, loves to dance. We go to a block party every month downtown, third Thursday here in small town, live music. And he and I were the only ones tearing it up in the grass when the band was playing a cover of Footloose. Like, how do you not dance to Footloose? We were going crazy. It was great. And then Eleanor, who's our youngest, we have 3 boys and a girl. Eleanor is 6. And, I don't know how it happened, but she loves pink. She loves unicorns. She loves rainbows. She loves Barbie dolls through no fault of my wife and no attempt by me to steer her. Like nature versus nurture, totally nature with her. She loves girly stuff against all of my wife's best efforts to have her be a tomboy.
That is,
and they are a handful. There is always emotional. I mean, you have 4 kids. Like with one kid, emotional chaos non-existent. You think it's there, but it's not. 2 kids, now they have someone to play with. 3 kids, you can take care of one while the other 2 are playing. 4 kids, like I love how Jim Gaffigan put it. If you want to know what it's like to have 4 kids, imagine you're drowning and someone hands you a baby. There is always emotional turmoil. You take care of one kid, the other 2 kids starting to fight, and like you got to go put that out. Then that kid with this other kid, there's always some sort of chaos happening with 4 children. You just can't. You can't just resolve. It's never resolved. There's always something.
There is no escape. That is for sure when you have that many kids. But what's funny is if you would have asked me 10 years ago if I would have had 4, I would have laughed. I would have been like, yeah, that ain't happening. I'll have 2. I'm not having 4. I'm not having 3. And then there were God had different plans for me and Jessica. I will say this, so I don't know if it's a birth order thing, second born thing. Mason and Phineas sound like they're a lot alike, meaning like, hey man, I have these standards and yeah, if you cross them, I'm going to go down to die what I believe in. Right. Which makes Mason very competitive and very stubborn. Like he does not back down from a challenge. In fact, he'll push even harder. And I always say, I love that about him as a human being. And as his father, I love that about him. And then there are times I hate that at the same time. Because I'm like, dude,
exactly.
Okay. Like there are times, okay, that I recently told him this. I was like, listen, man, there are times that you're going to have to challenge a status quo. Like right now, like you see me and mom making decisions as it pertains to certain things in the political arena, certain things about mandates, certain things about COVID and all that. We have our view on that. Right. And we stand firm on those things, but there's this whole thing right now about, do not comply right out there. And I told him, I was like, that's great. You've got to stand for what you believe in. Right. But make sure that you're always doing it for the right reasons. So in other words, Don't
refusing to unload the dishwasher does not count.
Right.
That's not one of the situations where you need to apply it.
Exactly. Pulling your weight around the house, and those types of things. Like, I understand you don't want to do those, but however, they
guess
need
what?
to be done.
Nobody does.
Right. Nobody does.
Nobody likes doing dishes except for that one weirdo. But it's like, that's with 4 children. And really, it's only been in the last year that I've really been able to latch onto that quote at the start, where when we realize that our reaction to our children's behavior has almost everything to do with our emotional state than what they're actually doing, right? The times where I've absolutely lost my cool and raged has been when I've been under stress from work or from some relationships. I've been under major pressure, and there's a kid just running in the garage screaming because they're playing cops and robbers, and I just absolutely lose it. And like, you guys got to be quiet, just lose my nonsense. Then there's other times just like, oh man, I just ran my bike into your car and now there's a giant dent in the back of it. I'm like, well, it's probably going to happen at some point anyway. Like, what am I going to do? It's like, it's okay, because in that situation, I'm calm. I'm in a very healthy emotional space. So that just like goes in, gets processed. That there's a huge amount of bandwidth to process that emotional energy right then. Whereas when I'm stressed and under pressure, my bandwidth drops so much that learning to focus on making sure that I'm okay has been huge. Because growing up, and no disrespect to my parents at all, I really believe that parents do the best that they can with the tools and the information they have. No parent wakes up thinking, how can I ruin my kid's life today? Most don't.
Right.
But growing up in the South,
unless you've been on Dr. Phil, and then there are those.
Right. We've all seen those parents where it's like the tools I was raised with were limited with the times that my parents were in. Being raised in the South, corporal punishment, discipline, crime and punishment scenario. You do that, you step out of line, you're going to get whacked. Step out of line, major consequence. And the tools that I've had to build, thankfully, to my wife. My wife is also named Jessica, coincidentally. Weird. A lot of Jessicas from that era. So learning to expand my tool set to handle all the emotional energy and help them process it. And I love what we talk about in the Dad Edge, the Accelerator, and in the Alliance, where making dad a safe psychological space, creating safe psychological space for kids. Because I know, and I think about this more often now than I did, because my son William is 14. He's going to have his learner's permit at the end of this. Well, I think six months after you turn 15. So in shortly over a year, my oldest is going to be able to drive himself places, and with me in the car, stuff like that. And after that, there's maybe 2 or 3 years left before legally he's an adult. And then who knows what he's going to do. And we all want our children to think of us as a safe space, not so much when they're 12, but when they're 22 or 32. And it really hits the fan and they're jammed up. Maybe they're going through a divorce. Maybe they're going through financial, who knows what, something. And I want my kids to know that they can give me a call. We all say, like, if you're ever drunk at a party, call me. I'll come pick you up. But then what happens? They call dad and they get chewed out on the phone for being drunk at the party, and they never call again. That's it. Like, oh, dad said he was safe, but he's not. And I got to protect myself. Like I was talking with, I've been actually going to a therapist for a bunch of years now to deal with my own nonsense. He was like, talked about some kids where, when a parent says, hey, I just want you to tell me the truth, you're not going to get in trouble. That's a trap.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. Most of the time, it does not end well. And really focusing on, no, I do want my kids to tell me the truth. And we all make mistakes. And if they make a mistake, I'm not going to berate them for it. I'm just going to say, hey, I get it. I've made mistakes. How can we work through this? Now, if this is the fifth time, it's like, all right, something's going on. Let's put some more safety measures in place so we don't find ourselves in this situation again. Right.
And safety measures, meaning we're going to ground you from absolutely everything. You will not see the light of the day.
Like maybe you need to take Uber for a while because you keep getting drunk at parties. Maybe just not go to parties. Like it seems like that's not a good space.
Right. It's okay. I love that you brought that up. That is something that we teach and we're very keen on, is creating an environment of psychological safety. And you did nail it too, which is, well, and men are just by nature, we're extreme thinkers. Well, if I'm creating a psychological safe environment, that means I'm the nice guy all the time. I'm like, no. Creating a psychological safe environment means your response is different. You're not going to blow up. You're not going to blow up. You're not going to lose. You're not going to completely lose your entire mind all over this person or kid or whatever. It's in the way you respond. A psychological safe environment is not the absence of discipline. It's also not the absence of consequences. However, it is the absence of guilt, shame, and blame. That's what it is.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
And when I say blame, I use that term very deliberately. So like there could be, if they screwed up and the fault is theirs, well, then that's where the blame goes. However, the guilt, shame, and blame is usually accompanied with, I told you not to do that. Haven't I raised you better? And then the blame is then just coated with this shame and guilt. And that's not what you really want.
It's just a downward spiral of emotional black hole. Like I'm a terrible person. I screwed up. My dad hates me. My dad's mad at me. Like my 6-year-old daughter, Eleanor, one of her biggest things, like, Dad, don't be mad. Right. It's like, because an angry dad is a very scary thing.
Can be. Yeah.
Very scary thing to have. It's like, I'm 200 pounds. Eleanor's 6. Like I'm 6 feet tall. She's like this, and having somebody my size angry at somebody that size, like it'd be like a grizzly bear yelling at me. Like, I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Exactly. No, but I want to make sure the audience caught that, because, the psychological safe environment comes in your response. Right. Mm-hmm. So, when you're a father, I think actually a young father, let's take fathers who are raising kids right now between 4 and 12, just for the sake of the ages. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. When a kid acts out, men can be pretty darn extreme, right? For different reasons. Mm-hmm. Maybe they were raised that way. Maybe they screwed up so many times as a kid that they know where these consequences are headed. So it comes out of fear, right? You nailed it also, when a lot of times, most of the time, our responses, if they're not the best responses in the world, or if we're losing our patience, it actually doesn't have a whole lot to do with the behavior of the kid. Because if you really boil down to it and you really ask a lot of men, like, hey, well, what do you expect? This kid's 6. Yeah, you're right. I totally expect that. So tell me what happened before this happened, and would you responded differently had all these things that happened beforehand not happened? And usually the answers are always the same. It's like, no, it's actually like I was having a really bad day. This happened, then suddenly this.
Exactly.
And then I lost it. Right. So I want to make
that sure was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Exactly. But that kid doesn't know
it was
that.
just a straw. Like, yeah, you had all these other straws from all this other stuff.
Right.
But the kid is the recipient of the eruption.
They are. And here's the takeaway. Think about it like this. I have kids in that age range, and so do you, in between 5 and 10 right now. And I also have between, just 14 and 15 right now. And what I can tell you is that the actions that I'm taking now, like especially with my 5 and 8-year-old, is to set them up for like, hey, here are the rules. Here are the boundaries. Make sure we abide by the rules, right? Because otherwise there will be consequences. However, if you come to me and you're honest with me about something, or, something happened, I saw you do it. Like last night, my son had a bowl of mac and cheese and he insisted on carrying it over to the table, and I knew he was going to drop it. And he did. He dropped it and it splattered everywhere. And I knew that was coming, right? And I was, instead of blowing up, because trust me, man, mac and cheese all over my cabinets and floor and everywhere else, and I'm starving.
And knowing it's going to happen. Now, did you say anything like, hey, I'll carry that for you? And he said, no, I'll do it. I'll do it. Yeah.
But, I was like, oh man, that's a bummer. I was like, you have to clean that up now. Right. And we laugh about it, pat him on the back, and he's like, oh man, I know it's not a big deal. So he cleaned it up. Now, if I would have blasted him, right, that sends a message of like, what you just did was wrong. Number two, the chances of if I do that over and over and over and over again, when that kid's 15, 16 years old, he's had a couple drinks at the party. I am not on his radar.
You will never know about it. You will never know about anything that goes on.
Right. So I'm in this. I think men need to know that, exactly what you just said. Mm-hmm. Be in this for the long game. The deposits that you put in these younger kids will transpire into how often they come to you as a young adult or a teen, right? Because it's not going to be the spilled milk. It's not going to be, I got the F on the science test. It's going to be like, hey, Dad, I'm thinking about having sex with this girl, or this girl like, hey, Dad, I'm thinking about having sex with my boyfriend, or hey, I had too much to drink, or hey, I tried drugs for the first time. It's going to be these bigger conversations that the kids need to have. And again, it's not the absence of consequences. It's not even the absence of discipline, but it is the absence of guilt and shame, most notably, right?
Absolutely. And it's been very difficult for me, raised in a culture of guilt and shame,
right,
to transition away from that, mostly for myself, honestly. When I make a mistake, when I screw up, I just beat myself up. I feel the shame. I feel the guilt. I feel the embarrassment. I feel all of those things. And it's actually motivating me more to prepare my kids so they don't have to deal with life the way I have to. So they're better equipped. Like, oh yeah, that was a mistake, but it's not going to ruin my month.
Right. Yeah.
I can absorb this and move on. And if it's a mistake that really has the potential to alter the trajectory of their life, then it's like, Dad is a safe space to talk to. Like, Dad, I did this. I don't know. Now I'm in way over my head and I don't know what to do. Maybe it involves drugs, sex, rock and roll, car wreck. I don't know. I don't know what it might involve.
Banging on drums.
So many ways kids can, mess things up. And putting those deposits in now where, hey, it was a mistake. You're not in trouble. There's no shame. We all make mistakes. Here's a mistake I made, and here's what I have to do to fix it. This happens to everybody.
Oh yeah.
So that relationship, really, it's not much different with children than it is in business with relationship capital. Making those deposits into a relationship with somebody. Now, obviously, my relationship with my children, I value significantly more than most other relationships in my world. But the idea of making those deposits, making those relationship deposits is the same. Just depositing into someone's life, building that relationship, and being that safe psychological space.
Yeah. And I want you to talk about that, because that's one of the things we were going to talk about today, which is relationship capital and why it's even significantly more valuable than monetary capital. And what do you deem as relationship capital? So you gave a few examples of like, hey, this is how we deposit, right? And deepen the relationship when we're talking about better relationships with people, elevated relationships with people. But how do you go about investing in relationship capital?
Relationship capital, actually, I was in a networking group for years with my real estate, with property management, with health coaching, like a leads group that you go to once a week and talk about what you do and you try and generate business. And the formula that they had, which I think really can apply to so many areas of life: visibility plus credibility equals profitability. Now, from a family standpoint, visibility, I just like being present, showing up in your kids' lives. Credibility, following through with what you say. If you say, yeah, no, I'll be at the game on Saturday, or I'll take you to practice tonight, or yeah, we can watch a movie tomorrow. There's only so many times you can drop the ball on that stuff before you don't have any credibility with your kids. And your kids like, oh yeah, no, dad's not going to make it. He always says he's going to be there or going to do that, but it never happens. Right. So it's the same thing in the business world, where if you are consistently showing up in somebody's space, whether it's, writing copy and emails, whether it's going to a weekly men's group, a weekly lead generation group, whether it's a blog that you have, whether it's a YouTube channel, that consistent showing up, that's the visibility. I mean, being there is the visibility. Consistency generates credibility. Like, really, humans are pretty simple. If you are in somebody's life consistently over time, they will trust you. It takes time and it takes work. Like, how long have you been doing the podcast now?
7 years. 7 years.
Yeah, not 20. 7
Right.
years. 7. And I'd be willing to wager money that the first year, you knew all your subscribers by name.
Pretty much. I did. Yeah.
Yes, Mom, I know you listened to the latest podcast. Thank you. Thank you for telling me you liked it. But that consistency of showing up and delivering work, and that visibility, credibility, profitability, it ties really into that progress is better than perfection. An author and a writer that I follow, I've been following him for years now, Seth Godin, and I have a couple of his books. One of his books that I love is What to Do When It's Your Turn, and it's always your turn. It's the idea of shipping your work is more valuable than making it perfect. Delivering your content to your audience is more valuable than making it 100% perfect, right? Now, it just so happens that my personality lends itself really well to this, which is why I have an assistant who hates that about me. So she can keep me in line when it's like, no, we really do need to get this 100%. 90% is not good enough. But for so much of life, just delivering something is better than spending 5 times the amount of work and effort and time to get at that last 5% to perfection. Most of the time, perfection never comes. But shipping your work, whether it's a podcast or a blog or an email or a video channel or something, shipping it consistently over time, that's how you build the relationship capital. And that's how you get the progress, which ultimately you get closer to perfection the more you ship, the more you deliver, the more you show up. So it's, truth is always intertwined with other truth. It's very rare that one snippet stands alone apart from every single thing else.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I had an experience with you that I haven't told you this yet because we haven't talked about it, but the experience that I had with you with what I would call credibility and consistency was second to none. And I'll share that story here real quick from talk about it. So Yeadon, I would view you as one of my clients. You're in the Dad Edge Accelerator Business Mastermind, along with several other men. But I also view myself as one of your clients because, my first million in multifamily, one of the things that I do, and the audience knows this, is I do tinker in real estate. And so I'm always looking to be a part of, a multifamily deal or a rehab or something like that. And I've worked with other investors and I've always had pretty good experience. And then I've been talking to you and your partners a lot lately. And I've just been like, hey, I really would love to be on the short list for the next opportunity you guys have for a multifamily deal. Can you bring me in on it and that kind of thing? And then you and I had a meeting because you had an opportunity and the numbers looked beautiful. They shook out and I was like, man, this is great. Like, let's go. And then I got a text from you saying like, hey, let's jump on a call. Or I just, I basically just need to.
Those are never good when you get those text messages, those cryptic messages.
But it was good. It was really good because you were so honest with me and it went so far to the point where now I can't wait for the next deal because I know it's going to be even better. So let me just share this real quick. So Yeadon revisited he got refreshed numbers from the organization that they were buying the multifamily from. The numbers didn't necessarily match the same as when they went through the first time. You called me, you were like, hey man, like we're watching out for all of our guys who are investing in this deal, and the numbers just, they're not shaking out like originally, like we thought they were, the original numbers that we got. So, being that we want to protect everybody and the integrity of how we operate, we walked away from that deal. And the thing is that
we can't take your money.
Right. So I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing, because you could have just moved forward with it, and we would have never known the difference. Right. But you were very upfront with it. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. So that's a long way to say that the next deal that comes across, my desk to work with you is like, I know that this has been, it's gone over with a fine tooth comb, and if it doesn't work out, then I know that there's probably a really good reason, because I trust your judgment. And if it does work out, it worked out for a really good reason, because I trusted your judgment. So there's that, and I'm not just saying that because, we do life together. I thought that was a beautiful demonstration of relationship capital and credibility.
Well, first, thank you so much, Larry. I really appreciate that feedback. And actually, one thing that we teach with the students that we mentor, we were just doing that on a Zoom call today, where we were helping, doing review of deals and analyzing things, is that that relationship capital in my industry is that sending out information and talking to your investor database or whoever it is like, hey, here's something. I just finished analyzing it. This is why it doesn't work. People love to see all the negative stuff. Like people, you can generate, and I don't say this like to be manipulative or anything, but if you are honest with people about the bad stuff, that goes so much farther to build that relationship capital than just, oh, everything's good, everything's fine, this is great, this is great, this is great, because we know that nothing is always great. Like that nothing is ever great all the time. There's always mistakes. 6-year-old, my 11-year-old kid, I tell him hey, put your shoes on because we're going paintballing. And you can't wear sandals. Okay, Dad, yeah, I'll do that. I would do it right now so you don't forget. And then, of course, 10 minutes down the road, oh, Dad, I forgot to put my shoes on. That was a time I had to take some very deep breaths and not rip the steering wheel off the column of my truck. But like, we all know stuff like that happens in life and business with relationships, and being upfront with people like, hey, this is not a deal, or this is not a good idea, and here's why. That gives the people that you're talking to like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about, because I've seen 10 opportunities that weren't opportunities and they were explained why not. And now I'm seeing one is like, he says, this is a deal, this is an opportunity, I'm in. I want to jump on that. In fact, that's actually how we connected with our partners out of Maine. We met them at a conference. They had a deal under contract here locally in the Charleston market. They don't live here. Jennings and I, my partner and I, live here. And we were like, no, we didn't have anything going on. Like, let us run point on anything you want. And we spent probably 6 weeks doing due diligence on it, analyzing stuff, getting quotes, running numbers, just figuring out how to make it a deal. And at the end of the 6 weeks, we're like, guys, this is not a deal. It's a deal if you pay $1 million less for it, but you need to walk away because this is not a deal. And we didn't have anything going on. We were desperate to get started, but that push, like, walk away from this because this is not a deal for y'all. It'd be a deal for us because we'd just be part of it and ride your coattails to success. But that I don't want to say negativity because that's not the right term, but that honesty about the negatives, honesty about the downside, that's where you build credibility. That's where the relationship capital, because when everything's going great, when everything's good, everything's fine. But everything is not always good. And it's when you hit the rough patch that you want to know that the person you're on the team with is going to shoot straight with you and say, no, that's bad. We need to avoid it. Instead of, no, we'll be fine. Let's go. Pedal to the metal. We'll figure it out later. It's like some things you can figure out later, but some things you can't.
Yeah. Some things after the trigger's already pulled, it's a little late now.
It's hard to put toothpaste back in the tube. Real hard.
I never thought of that analogy. I like that. Let's move on to just our final segment here, because you got me curious around investing in yourself. Men, just in general, this is a difficult thing for us, because we always have, usually what I see, there's three ways to invest, right? There's time, there's talent, and resources, right? Time, talent, resources. Time you can never get back. Talent is something that's unique to you. Resources is usually something monetarily or something that you're using. But normally when we talk about investing in ourselves, it comes from one of those three areas, or all three, or two out of the three. And a lot of men have a problem with that, because they feel guilty. They have this perception of like, well, it's selfish. Or maybe even this thing of like, well, if I'm not investing in myself, aren't I stronger and better and more amazing if I can do all these things on my own and don't need to be taught? So there's a lot of things at play. But for you, highly successful business owner, doing very, very well. Your health, you're always doing something for your health. You're not a lazy guy by any means when it comes to your kids. You're always involved in something with the kids. Mm-hmm. But what is the importance? What have you found is the most important aspect of investing in yourself?
I bring it back to that quote from the beginning, that when I realized that my reaction has more to do with me than what my kids are doing, it just that hit me like a freight train. And now, whether it's my time in the gym, so like the time that I invest in myself. Let's see, if I add up the time, 2 hours a week with my trainer, got an hour and a half week on the dad call. I got a couple other another probably hour of podcasts and reading that I do over the course of weeks. That's it's probably 6 hours a week that is like intentional. This is my time where I am growing and expanding my perspective, expanding my horizons. And it takes all three. Honestly, it takes talent, it takes time, and it takes resources, right? Being in the same room with high level performers, that's not free. And I'm glad to be in the room with such high level performers. I'm in more than one mastermind, because I got tired, and this is going to sound like, pretentiousness, but I got tired of being the smartest guy in the room. Most places, like I'm not getting anything here. I need to be in some place where everyone is smarter than me, and I can realize there's more available than what I know. Because another quote, you don't know what you don't know. And getting into masterminds like the Dad Edge or the Legacy Family or whatever mastermind that someone might join, that is time, resources, and talent requirements. You learn what you don't know. But those moments, like once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? Those sorts of things. Like once you see what's possible, you can't go back, right? Now that I really do believe that my reaction has more to do with me than what's going on with my kids, like, oh, this is a sign. It took years to get there, right? It took years to get there. But it's the most valuable investment is in yourself. Like I'm a huge believer in masterminds. I'm a huge believer in therapists. I've been seeing a therapist now for like 4 years. And it was after a rage episode where I realized this is the path that actually, no, that wasn't that was after I've been seeing the therapist. Like, okay, I need some more help. But it was actually funny. My wife pointed out to me at some point, like 4 or 5 years ago, we sat down. She's like, hey, do you ever feel like this? Yes, this, yes, this, yes, this, yes. Sometimes like, this is like, all those are signs of male clinical depression. Like, what? No, I'm fine. But really, like, as men, it is so difficult to give ourselves permission to not be okay. Because everything we have to, we have big shoulders. We can carry a lot of physical weight. We can carry a lot of emotional weight. We can carry a lot of relational weight. there's stress from work because your boss is mad at you, or you didn't land the client that you thought you would, right? Or the deal that you thought you were going to get another investor on, and like, nope, this is not a deal. Sorry, we got to walk away from this. Whatever it is, those pressures, we just isolate ourselves like, no, I can't show any weakness because I'll lose credibility. But if you think back, and every man will be able to do this. You think back to the time where, like, oh man, why doesn't my dad ever admit he's wrong? Or like, for me, I mean, it was like, why doesn't my dad ever clear his own stuff from the dinner table? Like, it's not that hard. There's the dinner table, there's the kitchen. Right? It's like, it's 5 steps to take your own plate to the sink. I just remember that as being a sticking point for me growing up. And as kids, we all recognize the flaws in our dads. We all know what flaws our dads have. And the only way to really like take the flaws off the table is to recognize them and admit them. Like, yeah, that the most powerful words a leader can say, I was wrong. Because guess what? Everybody else knows you were wrong. It's not a secret. It's like, oh man. So, but to honestly own your mistakes, because that builds, it's that being honest about the negative stuff. That's what builds trust, right? I want my kids to know that I make mistakes, but when I make a mistake, I say, I'm sorry. I ask for forgiveness. I try to make amends instead of, well, just deal with it. I'm 41, you're 6, and 6-year-old problems don't matter in a 41-year-old's life. Which on the one hand, our brains tell us is like, oh my gosh, like here's an example. My 11-year-old got a $20 drone for Christmas. $20 that his siblings bought, $20, cheap ass drone, little micro drone. And it stopped working on Christmas, right? 10 hours into presents. And he was heartbroken. Now this Christmas, I was under a lot of stress from work, a lot of stress. But when he came to me with the little bitty drone, like, Dad, it's not working. And I said, Phineas, I don't think we can fix it because it looks like the motor is bound up and I can't fix this. I don't know what to do. His face turned red. His eyes got watery. Like I could see, and he was beating himself up, that blame, shame, and guilt. He was beating himself up. And I realized I know exactly what that feels like. And I went to him just a few minutes later and said, Phineas, it's okay. This is not your fault. Here's some mistakes that I've made recently that are causing me to feel like you're feeling right now. I know what you feel like. It's okay. This is not your fault. This is just something that happened. And we worked through it. But that owning the negative stuff for your children, I think, is one of the biggest ways you can build relationship capital with them over anything.
I agree. I think our kids need to see us, right, as parents. But I also think that one of the big misses that a lot of us have is that, yes, they need to view us as parents. They need to view us as their guide, right? We are, every now and again, we have to be the bad guy too. But
this time it is because I said so. I'm sorry.
Every now and again, right? It's because I said so. But what I never
thought I would say those words, but here we
sometimes, right? But what I will tell you is it's really powerful for them to see the human side of us, that imperfect human side, right? The times that I've noticed, just like you, where I've had to eat crow and go apologize for something I did, which, to be honest, is more often than I like to admit, is what it is. And, when the kids see Dad become humble, it's a really big moment for both people, because the kids see you as like, oh, wow, like he's actually human, right? And they also see you leading with character and ownership, right? They don't see you making excuses. So it's actually a really powerful, powerful lesson to be able to own the things that you did wrong as a parent, because kids, it's caught, not taught, right? It's caught, not taught. So if you're never apologizing for poor behavior to your kids, or not owning something that you did wrong, and you wonder why your kids are full of excuses when they come to you, maybe gut check how you're operating in front of them. The more that I found that I would own a lot of my stuff, which I do, the more I found how forgiving my kids are. My kids are very resilient and they're very forgiving. And especially if you give them an opportunity to flex that forgiveness muscle, man, they're ready, right? They're the most forgiving people on the planet for the most part. But, we have an opportunity as fathers to not always be right, but to show them what it means, how you operate when you're wrong. All right. When you make a mistake.
There's a phrase I use. We're big Harry Potter fans in my family. And there's a phrase from book 2, The Chamber of Secrets, where Ron and Harry, they show up in a flying car, they get in major trouble. And the headmaster Dumbledore says, if you guys step out of line again, I'm going to be forced to expel you. Well, of course, at the end of the book, in the climactic scene, they cross over the boundaries. They do stuff that's against the rules and end up saving the day. And then they're talking with the headmaster, Ron and Harry and Hermione. They're talking with the headmaster, and they're like, "Yes, I'm sorry. We know what the consequence was. We stepped out of line. We knew, but we didn't have any choice. We had to, save the world," type thing. And Dumbledore says, "Well, that just goes to show you how very wrong I can be." Yeah. And I think about that so often when my gut reaction is to start spitting out consequences and repercussions and doom on you and doom on you and doom on your cow and your whole family. And then I have to wind it back. So many times as a dad, it's like we just get entrenched. It's like, this is what I said, and now I have to follow through or I'm going to appear weak. But that's something else that I've learned where that's not the case. It's like, no, this just goes to show you how wrong I can be in a moment where I'm reacting emotionally. And I'm sorry, you're not going to lose your iPad for the rest of the year. It's only January 10th or 11th. So, let me think of there's going to be a consequence, but it's not going to be so dramatic. Let me dial it back and deal with me so then I can help you deal with you.
I love that story, man. Very, very true that I've noticed when I apologize to my kids, they take more ownership in their own life. My wife is the same. Like they'll come up and admit wrongdoings, which is really, really great. Or they don't need to be pressed, to be like, yeah, I did that. Okay. Man, this has been really, really cool I know you obviously do life in the accelerator. The only last question I have for you before we jump into, I want you to share where people can contact you, especially our guys. We have a lot of guys who are in real estate investing and a lot of guys who are keen on learning. So I want to make sure that they find you if they have resources. But you've been a part of Accelerator now since May of last year. So it's been almost a year as this show launches. What have been some of the most aha moments that you've had since you've been doing life with us?
I would say a huge, in the group, there's we call it walking the cube, and I'm going to screw it all up. But at its core, it's basically delineating, identifying the difference between thoughts, feelings, actions, and outcomes. I think those are the 4 things where my son Phineas, Dad, I forgot to put my shoes on. When I told him 15 minutes ago, put your shoes on now so you don't forget. And, being able to identify that thought, peel it off, is like, okay, this is the thought that I'm having. This is the emotions that I'm having. And being able to kind of step outside of myself to walk through that process internally, like, okay, well, the outcome that I want, he has to have his shoes. The outcome I want is I want us to be not late, but we're going to be late now. Nothing I can do about it. So no point in berating anybody. Let's just move forward. No, the outcome that I want in that scenario was I want everybody to have a good time. I want everybody to have a good day. Me chewing my son out because he didn't put his shoes on like I told him to because I knew this was going to happen. That is only going to make his day terrible. And that's not the outcome that I want. So being able to step back and process through the thoughts, the emotions, the actions that I want to take, the outcome that I want to take, that's been huge. And I would not just the consistent showing up of all the guys in the Dad Edge Accelerator for talking about it and sharing wins, sharing fails, or talking about the bad stuff as well as the good stuff, has really given me the motivation and the environment to keep that at the forefront when I need it.
Yeah, man. We call that GPS for communication. The experience cube, or walking the cube, which, by the way, was taught by a fantastic mentor over at clearleadership.com. So that skill set actually isn't what we call like a Dad Edge skill set. That was developed by the folks over at Clear Leadership. They actually have a course on that. But yeah, walking the cube, which is a fantastic way to approach conversations or situations that would otherwise be highly triggered, either by you or the other side or both of you. And yeah, it helps distinguish the differences between what we call observations, thoughts, feelings, and actions. Exactly what you just said.
Yeah, there you go.
Because when we go to have, and just to give you an example of how this plays out, let's just say we'll talk about the main thing that all men always want to hear about, right? Let's just say that you want to go have more sex with your wife, right? But you don't want to broach that topic because you're going to go into it probably like a bull in a china shop, being like, I feel like we just don't have sex anymore. Like, why don't we have sex? And I don't know, I feel like we're kind of disconnected a lot if we're not having a lot of sex, right? And the last time we had sex, like if I look at it, like we've had sex maybe twice in the last month. I don't know if we can maybe somehow, some way get to once a week. Now, there's probably no man on the planet that's actually going to do exactly what I just did, because it's completely moronic. But a lot of times that's kind of like on our mind. Like that's like, okay, I'm going to go in and
that's the scenario that's playing out in our head.
Right. It's like, I need to communicate this thing, but I don't know how. And the cube allows us to, hey, I've noticed over the past month that we've had sex about twice a week. I'm sorry, twice this past month for the past few months, right? That's an observation. And an observation, if you're walking the cube, is like, hey, this is an observation that most likely we can both agree is happening. It's not a perception.
These are the facts.
Yes,
these are the facts.
These are the facts.
It's 33 degrees outside. That's a fact.
It's a fact, right? We can agree on that. The thought is, I always like to tell men when I'm coaching men to start your thought with, the story I'm telling myself is, or the thoughts I have around this are. And when we do that, say, I've noticed that we've only had sex twice a month for the past 3 months. The story that I'm telling myself is, even though it might be crazy, is that, maybe you're just not into me anymore. Or maybe you're bored with our routine. That's the story I'm telling myself. And when I have those thoughts, because like I said, like side note here, a thought is a sentence, a feeling is one word. When I have those thoughts, I feel frustrated. I feel kind of lonely, right? And what I truly want is to elevate intimacy with you, because you end things with the action, the wants. So it's observation, thoughts, feelings, and wants. But it's a fantastic way to be very clear with your communication. And again, that is not a skill set that we created. That's something you can find over at clearleadership.com, because we were taught it. But I'm glad that's been a great thing for you. Is there anything else that has been just something that has really moved the needle for you?
The other thing that I've seen is the groups that we have for the goal setting intensive, where we're put into groups for accountability and motivation and forward progress. Those have been key, I think, for my journey with the accelerator, because it's just like, we all know what to do to lose weight, right? I'm just going to use that as an example. It's January, New Year's resolution. Like, you eat less and you get rid of all the junk food, right? But it's very difficult to do that in a vacuum. It's very difficult to do that in isolation. And it's the same thing with walking the cube, with taking care of yourself. It's difficult to do if you're doing life alone. But it's difficult to follow through on goals that you set for yourself and action steps unless you have an environment that can help you move forward. One thing, so many good quotes popping in my head now. Environment trumps will. Your willpower will only take you so far, and getting frustrated. There's only so many times your willpower can get punched before it's just like, okay, I cannot do this. So I'm just going to go live my life over here because I can't do that. And inserting yourself into an environment of forward movement is key. And having those groups where we can check in on the daily, we have the weekly calls with everyone in the group. Those have been huge for my growth this past year.
Well, if that's the case, buckle your seatbelt, because wait till you see what you're going to see on Friday.
I'm excited. I just downloaded the workbook today.
Yeah. You're going to see Coach Jake. He's one of our coaches in Accelerator. He's now our CAO, our Chief Accountability Officer. He's got a whole system that he's rolling out this week for accountability. The number one for you guys is going to be very easy to do. It's just going to be a more enhanced version to where you guys are going to be executing, celebrating the wins that you're executing. And then when we identify a place where you need more support, we're going to give you that more support, but it's a systematic way to really check in and make sure that we're doing the tactics that are going to achieve the goals that we want. So
nice. I'm looking forward to it. Friday calls that's my time on Friday.
That's right, baby. Friday.
That's right.
That's right. Well, hey, I want to make sure for all you guys who are, curious about real estate investing, maybe you haven't invested in the past. Maybe this is something you just want to get your feet wet. Maybe you're a seasoned investor and you're looking for more guys like Yeadon to be on the hunt for these more multifamily deals. But for any of the guys who are really interested in maybe getting to know you and your program and the things that you're doing, please share every way they can get in touch with you.
So the best way to get to connect is in our Facebook group. We have a large group on Facebook, pushing 23,000 people. It's called My First Million in Multifamily. We do weekly we just did a broadcast. Actually, no, we have a broadcast for tomorrow on, actually, we're talking about goals and how to, I think that's what we set it up for. But we do live broadcasts every week in the group, a lot of interaction. That's if you're interested in learning about how to become a real estate investor and do what we do. Our website, liveoak.properties, is where you can, join our investor list, or you can just drop me an email, Yeadon@rentliveoak.com. Actually, I forgot to tell you, it's Live Oak Capital, not Live Oak Capital.
Oh, I'm sorry. Live Oak.
That's okay. I realized that, no, it's like we have live oaks here in the Low Country. But I always forget. It's like, oh, no, it's not live. Yeah, rent. liveoak.com, Yeadon, Yeadon. Or, when you wrap up a podcast, you're like, yay, done.
Outstanding, man. Well, we got it. And it's going to be in the show notes, guys. That's a lot of things to remember. And especially as a host, if you can't say it right, for the love of God, Larry, come on now. You got real problems, but hey, at least we can all remember this, which is the dadedge.com/Friday38. Again, the dadedge.com/Friday38 for all the show notes to connect with Yeadon, to just go through some of the things that we talked about today, just as a refresher. We'll also have an application in there for the Dad Edge Accelerator. So if you're a dad business owner, you have to be a dad business owner to be a part of that. We help men elevate in 3 areas: to scale your business, to create a legendary marriage, and an epic connection with your kids while also leading yourself. So Yeadon, this was awesome, man.
Larry, it's been my pleasure. Loved it.
One quick fun fact: what does Yeadon mean? What does the name Yeadon mean?
So Yeadon, it's an old family name. It's my father's middle name. And going back generations, it's a surname on my dad's side somewhere. And I tell my dad, if we've been here for so many generations, why are there not more streets named after us in Somerville? I don't understand. 8 generations and there's no Smith? What's going on? So it's from England, but I've never been able to find its meaning. I look in baby name books. Surprisingly enough, Yeadon doesn't show up as a meaning. I was just in Florida, and the little shot glass that has names on them, Yeadon was not an option.
I can't imagine that it would be. I'm just Yeadon, English, name from Yeadon, a place in West Yorkshire. That's definitely not it.
There's a place in England, but that's as far as I know. Just a location naming.
Well, I think from now on, for those of you who have written the baby naming book, just follow Yeadon and follow his life, and then just give life some sort of, give the name Yeadon some sort of meaning as you watch this man live his. All right, brother. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, man. This was a pleasure.
Larry, likewise. Thank you so much. I I can't wait to be on the call on Friday.
Yeah, man. Can't wait.
More pumped.
I know. Can't wait to see you there. Gentlemen, like I said, for all the links and all the show notes, go to thedadedge.com/Friday38 for this show. And above all else, go out, live legendary. Take care.